It's the varicella or chickenpox vaccine, which previously for the last school year had been required for pre-K through second grade. And for the 2004-2005 school year, it is being required for those pre-K and kindergartners all the way up to 8th grade.
Chickenpox is a highly infectious viral disease. Symptoms include an itchy blister-like rash, fatigue, and fever. Most cases occur in those under 15 years of age. About 1 in 10 children infected with chickenpox suffers from complications.
There are small side effects from chickenpox, things like the scarring, secondary skin infections from scratching, but there's much bigger complications, including meningitis, and children can even die. Actually, adults suffer a lot from chickenpox, and I think in the days when you or I were kids, there wasn't the population of immunocompromised people. Our population health-wise has changed a lot in the last 20 to 30 years or so, and they've recognized how dangerous the disease is, and we want to prevent it. Right now, we do collect data in terms of just a case count, but at some point, we're going to be following chickenpox probably like we follow things like hepatitis, because these decisions have been made by the people at the state level to take this a little bit more seriously.
The Milwaukee Health Department says that before the chickenpox vaccine became available, there were about 11,000 hospitalizations and 100 deaths from the disease each year in the United States. What is required for all public and private schools and daycare centers? The date of the chickenpox vaccination, or if the child has had chickenpox, a date if you know it, or a waiver for health, religious, or personal conviction reasons.
We are always very conscious of working with the health department, the city, and the state, doing our best to try and get all of our kids in line and in compliance with the law as far as that goes. Our commitment to work with the various health centers, Aurora or whatever the case may be, right at our schools. We're trying to bring more clinics to the kids that need it most, not just for this one shot, but for all their shots. And it's an ongoing process.
There are some 100,000 students in the Milwaukee public school system. About 70% usually have the required immunizations when the school year begins. That leaves as many as 30% who may not be in compliance with the state requirements at that time.
We go from about 30,000 students behind, and we usually are able to get to about 90% in compliance through 9-10 months of real hard work. We send letters, warning letters out 3 or 4 times a year. Students in certain grade levels can be excluded from school. In February is usually when we do that, and they can be excluded to up to 5 days if they don't come into compliance.
In terms of the vaccine, our immunizations are free for all children under the age of 19. We don't charge for any, for the most part. Chickenpox we can only offer to children. Unfortunately, we cannot immunize adults with that right now. But otherwise, we just ask that if a family suspects that their child has chickenpox and they don't currently have medical care, to just call the health center nearest you, and you can ask to talk to a nurse, and a nurse can help work you through the system and get you connected. Our clinics are open. We have a clinic open for a few hours every day of the week, Monday through Friday. It's called 286-8034. And that would get you, you can use that number to request immunization records, which we'll send to your home, or you can use that number to find the health center nearest you.
You may have seen this poster on a county bus. It's part of an educational campaign to build awareness of the dangers of the disease and the new school requirements.
Our early mailings that go out in very, very early August remind parents about a number of things, starting times, transportation, but it includes the update information about the immunization. The students may have had the chickenpox or they may have had the shot, but we never asked to see the information before. The older kids now, I'm talking about maybe grades 2nd through 8th grade, which are now coming underneath the new state requirement, we never even asked them to bring it in. So now we're asking them we need a copy of that particular shot, or in the case if they had the disease, we just need to know a verification of what the date was when they had it.
The state now has a registry where doctors, schools, and others can check on a child's immunization record. That's proven very helpful when parents change doctors or schools or lose immunization records. According to the health department, 4 out of 5 toddlers are immunized against potentially serious yet preventable childhood diseases. 20% are not. Since changes are constantly being made to the schedule, the health department recommends parents check regularly with their pediatrician or the health department. And another change next year, as the chickenpox immunization will be required for students through the 12th grade.
So really, if a family has a little kid who needs the shot, they might as well get all the children immunized, because eventually the schools will be looking for it. It's just important for people to realize that it is a requirement, that it can be a much more dangerous disease.
Fire Captain Sean Slowey is a paramedic. Fire Lieutenant Jeff Barton, an emergency medical technician. They are part of the Milwaukee Fire Department's Paramedic Bicycle Response Program, now in its 5th year. It grew out of concerns about huge crowds at the July 3rd lakefront fireworks.
What we found is that after a certain time, by allowing people to put their chairs and tents on Lincoln Memorial Drive, that you couldn't get an ambulance there, which restricted our access to patients that needed advanced life support. And basically, with the event of these new small-sized automatic defibrillators, we're able to carry everything on the 2 bikes that we carry in our ambulance, just in a much smaller quantity. So we can do CPR, advanced life support, a lot easier with everything that we have on these bikes. I like it because it does provide a service, and from my point of view, I know the value of, one, being out in the public and educating them on not only what we do as paramedics, but on the 911 system.
About the only thing the patrol can't do with their Wisconsin-made Trek mountain bikes is transport a victim. But they provide a swift response when the first few minutes of an emergency can save a life. 50 Milwaukee paramedics and EMTs have been trained to take part in the voluntary program. In addition to their medical training, they also learn bike handling and safety, and even how to make minor repairs.
We are pretty much doing an event almost every weekend during the summer because of the demand and the support by the public. They just like seeing us out there. They realize that at an event like this, that access is poor. They like coming up and talking to us about EMS, so for us it's a good way to educate the public also.
Are people surprised to see you on bikes?
Yes, very often their first response is, don't put the handcuffs on. And then we explain that we're not police officers, we're actually paramedics.
That's not to say you won't find a police officer on a bike. Milwaukee Police also have a bicycle patrol program, started in 1990 as part of the city's community policing initiative. Officer Matthew McGrory works the downtown area. Like the firefighters, accessibility to potential problems in crowded conditions is important. But you'll find the bike patrol in less crowded areas as well. Officer Art Kleist patrols the 4th District, a large area on the northwest side.
And we just patrol and do the law enforcement of statutes and city ordinances. And then also there's a lot of nice contact with citizens versus being in a squad car. You're a lot more approachable on a bicycle, so you'll get contact that way a lot more. In a district as big as District 4, the difficulties being response time if there's something going on at one end or the other versus in a squad, of course. But I think the positive things outweigh the negative things as far as even when the district is large as District 4. With the bicycle, now that we've been out here for a few years, people aren't as surprised. But initially, I had people run out of their houses riding through the neighborhoods, waving and saying how happy they were to see bicycle police officers in their neighborhood. Like I say, they've seen us now, so it's not such a shock anymore. But the stealth thing is probably one of the key as far as law enforcement goes. You don't really expect to see a police officer riding up on their bicycle.
Officer Kleist is one of the instructors for the police department's bicycle patrol program. About 90 officers have taken the training.
A lot of people, I think, are surprised when they get to the course because it is a little bit more difficult. There's various riding techniques, urban obstacles, riding steps, descending and ascending, going down curbs. As far as law enforcement goes, apprehending suspects, appropriate way that you're safe as well as the citizen or suspect. There's a lot of different things that are involved. Also, you have to teach the rules of the road, which a lot of people, like you say, you ride a bike once and you know how to ride a bike. But as far as the rules of the road, that's kind of an important thing too. We try to pass that along to the kids and other people who ride.
Seattle pioneered the police bicycle patrol in 1987. Milwaukee followed 3 years later. You can find a bike police officer on the street at almost any time of the year.
We ride pretty much in all types of weather, and it's really not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, you'll get wet occasionally, and you'll maybe get a little cold once in a while, but as long as you have the appropriate tools and equipment, you're okay. I really do like the bikes quite a bit. I feel very fortunate that I've been able to maintain my position on the bike, and even going as far as becoming an instructor was a really exciting thing for me. I like being involved in this sort of thing. It's come a long way, and the equipment and things to keep us safe and help the people of Milwaukee have come a long way.
Many fire departments around the country now have bicycle response units, but 5 years ago, Milwaukee was a pioneer in this type of program.
When I worked up in administration, I was getting emails almost on a weekly basis from other fire departments wanting to know how we started, where we got the equipment, what kind of bikes we were using, all the information that we had so that they could set up similar systems. A lot of the public in Milwaukee does not realize how good the EMS system is in Milwaukee, and it's our notoriety, we are probably much higher ranked or thought of outside of the city by people who look at statistics than the people in the city who pretty much take these whole system, the hospitals and the EMS system in Milwaukee, for granted. I know that sometimes when I travel, I'm pretty amazed at how far back some of these systems are. So we're pretty fortunate in Milwaukee.
The park that gives the neighborhood its name is one of the smaller parks in the Milwaukee County system. 6.2 acres with a wading pool among its features. Homes surround this green space, required by the city when the area was subdivided in the early 1950s. At first glance, many of the homes here appear to be facing a winding alley. There are very few sidewalks where you'd expect them to be. For the most part, the sidewalks are between and in back of the homes, with lampposts also unique to the city.
Like I say, my wife and her family have lived here since the early 60s. I can remember the first time I came to pick up my wife, I'm driving in this neighborhood and I'm saying, where are the sidewalks? The sidewalks are in the back of the house. The streets don't have curbs, it's like alleys. This neighborhood's all backwards. And my family explained to me how it works, that all these passage walks that you see all come and connect the neighborhood to the park. It's a nice little isolated piece of pie. It's kind of a well-kept secret, but we all love it here in Wedgewood Park.
My parents were the second to last house to be built in the subdivision of Wedgewood Park. We've been here since the early 60s. I think their house was finished in 1964. Many of the same residents that built their home still occupy their home and are neighbors here in Wedgewood Park. The neighborhood is gradually going through the process with older residents selling their home to younger families. And much of the things I remember as a child, people coming to the park and enjoying activities in the park, people walking on the paths, people knowing their neighbors, and the sense of community that was here when I was a little girl remains the same.
Wedgewood Park is bounded by Morgan Avenue on the north, Howard Avenue on the south, from 68th to 76th Streets. There's a heavy emphasis on ranch-style homes, but nearly every post-war style of architecture can be found.
There is no consistency in architecture, but the attraction is the people who live here, the great people of the city of Milwaukee who live here in this neighborhood, that make everyone that come here feel welcome.
The layout was an experiment in urban planning in the 1950s. With its unusual street patterns, many visitors and residents discovered the neighborhood by accident.
I met my wife and learned about the neighborhood. The house, and it's funny how it works for houses and sales. The house across the street, they were moving on in their life. Told the guy I work with, hey, house across the street. He came that night, made an offer, bought that house.
Our neighbor that just moved in next door, he too lived here just down the street when he was a young man and brought his family back to Wedgewood Park. And there's several instances that I can think of in just our block where the children have come back to Wedgewood Park being a city resident, or just because they enjoyed the experience and want their children to have the same kind of memories and childhood that they had.
We lived on the other side of Howard, and we had heard about the park, and we decided to take our baby in the stroller to the swing set, and that's how we ended up here. And we saw the house for sale across the street, made an offer that day, and moved right in. It is a wonderful place just to even get exercise. You meet your neighbors while you're getting exercise. You have a beautiful scenery, and as our slogan says, all paths lead to the park. So no matter where you go, you end up in the park. And it's just very, you see the bunnies, you see the squirrels. It's just very, very relaxing.
This apartment at 68th and Howard, dating to 1900, appears to be the oldest building in the neighborhood, perhaps part of an early farm site. The area was all farmland prior to 1950. There are some safety concerns in Wedgewood, but it's generally a very quiet area. A neighborhood association formed in the late 1990s after observing a Halloween party of the Jackson Park Association.
And really the impetus for the neighborhood association. We had a wonderful, successful, safe Halloween. Nighttime, everybody liked it. It got neighbors connecting again. Here it is about 6 or 7 years later, we're still going strong. The neighborhood association does an independence celebration. We have a celebration in the park that usually has the decorating of bikes and that. We do a cleanup in the park. We do an Easter egg hunt in the park with complete with the Easter bunny and photographs. We do a Christmas tree lighting. Annette Sherbert, one of the last things she did as an alderwoman for the city of Milwaukee was she planted us a nice evergreen tree, and the county and the city worked together to get electricity out to it, so that right after Thanksgiving we have a tree lighting, and then we have the tree decorated throughout the holidays. So things like that, things that government traditionally did but with budget constraints can't do. We do as a neighborhood to kind of bring back and show our children and the people in the community that government isn't always the answer to everything. Sometimes, we have to do it ourselves.
About 70% of the residences in Wedgewood Park are owner-occupied. There are also a number of rental units, many with unique designs of their own. As Honey Creek curves through the northeast corner of the area, it passes the only commercial building in Wedgewood Park, the Morgan Office Park on 68th and Morgan. Residents say it may be an isolated neighborhood, but they're still close to all the conveniences the city has to offer.
Our neighborhood association just formed a neighbor services committee. And what they do is they welcome people into the neighborhood, and they make sure that the real estate agents know about what's coming for sale in the neighborhood. And basically what I tell people about the neighborhood is that what a sense of community to find right in the middle of the city.
I can send my kids down the path and know that they know probably 7 or 8 families down the path, so that they're safe, and they have that same kind of sense of safety that was here when I was young. And I know that as times change and you're reluctant to let go of some of that independence for your children, that here you can have that, because neighbors still know their neighbors, they know who your kids are, and they watch out for each other.
One thing nice about Wedgewood Park is you're coming to visit somebody if you're coming in here. In other words, it's no shortcut to anywhere. A lot of our other friends in different neighborhood associations have the problem of just people that commute right through their neighborhood. Don't stop, don't look, don't do anything. And we have no major thoroughfares that go through our neighborhood. And all the streets kind of wind around, and there's an aerial photo. If you look at it, you say, boy, there's no shortcuts there. It's just a long way around, is to come through Wedgewood Park. But if you do it, it's well worth your time.
If we're going to have the effect that we want in any community within the city of Milwaukee, we need to be able to partner together, to trust each other, to build working relationships, not just lip service, working relationships.
With that comment, Chief Haggerty used the occasion of a Southside community meeting to formally introduce the 2 community liaison coordinators. She says veteran sergeants Luis Gonzalez and Harold Hampton share the cultural awareness of their respective communities and can effectively address their concerns.
We, as a police department, need a better understanding of the Hispanic culture. And you, as the Hispanic community, need a better understanding of police procedures and why we do what we do. There are problems on both sides here. You know, it's not all the police, it certainly is not all the Hispanic community, but there are problems on both sides.
There are some communication barriers, there are some, that we need to tear down and break down and stuff like that. A lot of department members need to start coming on board, start helping, and I'm going to be tapping into each and every one of you in this room to start breaking down some of these cultural barriers. And we need to also I'm going to need your help in also building these bridges between the department and the community.
I can't tell you some of the plans that Sergeant Gonzalez and I have for you, but what we're really hoping is that you tell us your problems so we can address those accordingly. This is unprecedented for the Milwaukee Police Department. We're hoping that those concerns that you have expressed today will get resolved.
The two community liaison coordinators will probably be attending many meetings like this one, a meeting called to address recent incidents on the Southside. It included many Hispanic community leaders, the local newspapers, members of the police command staff, politicians, and the Fire and Police Commission. The police department hoped to share information with the community and offer explanations and police perspectives about the incidents that strained relations between police and the Hispanic community.
As public servants, we recognize just how important public trust is to police work. We realize that without public trust, we cannot perform our policing duties and responsibilities as effective or as efficient as we want to and need to. The Milwaukee Police Department mission to reduce crime and improve quality of life for all citizens is a difficult task, and one that cannot be achieved without mutual respect, cooperation, and collaboration between the police and citizenry we serve. In essence, the success of the Milwaukee Police Department parallels the success of many of the agencies, groups, and individuals represented here today. Many of the same people we deal with as victims or law violators are the same people your agencies deal with. Many of the causes of inappropriate behavior require many of the services your agencies offer. Therefore, it is vital that we build and bridge communication and cultural differences in order to forge meaningful partnerships that lead to peaceful resolutions. This will allow us to work together in harmony so we can deliver professional services that best meets the needs of the community and citizens we are to serve.
You can reach Sergeant Hampton at 935-7827, Sergeant Gonzalez at 935-7825. Chief Haggerty says the new assignments are not just for the community, but for the police department as well.
And it is a little selfish that I've done this because I think it's long overdue. That we need to understand each other's concerns.